People need to be educated because technology and construction is moving fast, but what's moving faster is AI. AI is moving faster than anything that we've seen. And I do think that there needs to be a certain amount of education that needs to be done. Why are we using this? What are the actual problems this is going to solve for? And I think once you've educated the right people, you will be able to explain to them like why is this necessary and where they could go in their career if they had the ability to use a tool that can help them grow in that facet.
Work is changing, quickly, irreversibly, and often invisibly. I'm Chris Fanchi, and this show is about understanding where it's headed and how we stay human in the process. Hello and welcome to Human Work After AI, the show where we explore the future of work, technology, and what it means to stay human in the age of AI. We're speaking with founders, technologists, and thinkers who are navigating the shift toward an AI-powered economy. Today's guest is Eric Helitzer, founder and CEO of SubBase, a centralized platform designed to replace outdated manual procurement workflows in the construction trades. With over a decade in both subcontracting and general contracting, Eric saw firsthand how much inefficiency was baked into the way materials and equipment were ordered, tracked, and reconciled. Now he's leveraging AI and automation to bridge the gap between field crews, back offices, vendors, and warehouses, helping trade contractors protect their margins and operate with a far greater speed and accuracy. Eric, welcome to the show.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me.
So I always like to start with my guest's origin story or their background. You didn't come from software specifically. So how did your time as a subcontractor and GC lead you to founding a tech company like SubBase?
Sure. I'm going to go a little bit before then because a lot of people want to know, how did I get into construction? Early on in my career, I was interning from the University of Florida. I studied construction management, and it was a very unpopular degree to study in college. Most people didn't understand that you can go to college and get a degree in construction management. But at the time, I had a family that was in the business. I saw a lot of the excitement around the South Florida market, specifically in Miami, that was building like nonstop, and decided to pursue a career in construction management. And when I graduated, one of the tips that my family and also the business that I wanted to work for told me was, go work in the trades and go work in the field first so that you can build your knowledge of what it takes to actually build before you came to the GC side. So I spent time in the trade world on the subcontractor front, specifically in the concrete space, leveraged a lot of different, practices on how to not just build a great company, but how to build buildings, and slowly started to see as my career progressed, the digital shifts in technology that construction is now undergoing. One of the first pieces of technology that I saw on the GC side opened my eyes to just getting a lot of the manual workflows into a more systematic, centralized place. From there, we were pretty inquisitive as far as how to make not just the company that I was working with better, but how do the trades that we relied on, how do they work better? From the GC level, just for most people, a GC that doesn't self-perform, so a general contractor that doesn't self-perform, is almost 100% reliant on subcontractors to actually get the work done. And a subcontractor is typically 80% of that business is between their material, labor, and equipment. And so post-COVID, there was a lot of movement in materials, a lot of movement in pricing, a lot of unclear visibility as far as just where my materials were, what's going on. And so we started to build software in-house that was helping the trades we were working with just from a field operate in a more centralized way so they had more visibility. That led to breaking into more of the workflows on the accounting side, on the vendor side. And now we built what is now SubBase, which is truly a standalone platform that connects to the accounting systems, ERPs that construction people are using on the trades and GCs that self-perform, but tie the whole ecosystem together because of how manual the process is today. So this is from learned experience, not in college as much as it was from actual field work that we were doing, and also seeing it day to day play out in front of my eyes is why we started building SubBase.
Did you always have the desire to be an entrepreneur, to start your own business, or was it just this opportunity came up and you couldn't resist the pull?
I would say that I was always leaning towards potentially doing something, but it was more so the opportunity came up, and the company who is a user of our platform, who was a very early investor in what they saw real early on, actually was the one that introduced me to, that more entrepreneurial tech spirit, but definitely was not on my career roadmap of leaving and going into the tech world. It's just the timing and opportunity came at the right time.
So, for our listeners outside of construction, what does material procurement look like today for most trade contractors? What's broken about it that you guys are seeking to
Yeah.
fix?
So there's so many pieces. So material procurement in this world of construction is extremely manual with emails, text messages, phone calls, Excel spreadsheets, potentially trying to track. It could be centralized, it could be decentralized, it could be semi centralized where certain pieces of the puzzle are tied together. There's about 6 to 7 different people that touch a single order. So a single box of nails that is needed for a specific project could literally touch 6 or 7 people, and there's just so much fragmentation in how it moves that we solve for like all those different problems, but also have the flexibility to really drill in and really give each stakeholder in the process the tools they need to get their specific piece of the puzzle done. We can spend an entire podcast talking about the problems, but from a high level, it's extremely, extremely fragmented, very manual, lacking a lot of automation today outside of obviously what we do. And there's no real true visibility into spend, into availability, into the communication between all the parties. And that's the big high level that we solve for with SubBase.
So, you mentioned that there is a technological shift going on within construction. When did that start? And, construction is often viewed as kind of behind the curve when it comes to tech. Are you seeing that them catch up? Is it speeding up?
Yeah. So I'll answer two questions. So where it started, at least from my view, it started when the iPhone was introduced into the field. Um, once the iPhone was introduced into the field, it allowed people to see their emails in real time, right? It allowed a lot of different collaboration that didn't happen when you didn't have that iPhone in the field. You had images, you were able to pull up things. So once iPhones started coming in the field and you had the iPads, it made it a lot easier to start looking at field technology. But technology in construction has been around for a while, right? There's been building information modeling or BIM models that have been out for, I mean, since even before I was in college, they were talking about BIM and modeling. And really, the biggest piece of that was it's solving a lot of the great problems, but some of the computing power to get these models to tie together, to do clash detections, were still at the forefront of like being able to do that on a computer, which now it's been, a lot, it's further along in that respect. So it's been around for a while, but really, what set off the adoption in today's world is now you're seeing artificial intelligence play into the piece, right? You now are able to see what AI can do with text and data and documents that you didn't see about a year to 2 years ago. That's now coming into that interface of the construction world. So I think that there's a couple of different what I would say milestones, right? First would be the introduction of the iPhone. Second would be the introduction of like connectivity of platforms, being able to move data from one platform to another. And now we're seeing what I would consider the third milestone, which is now artificial intelligence being released into a lot of the applications that are being built around the workflows today in construction.
Where are you seeing the demand for improved technology come from within the construction space? Is it coming from the GCs, kind of a top down, or is there demand from subcontractors who are drowning and
Yeah.
need the help?
I see it from both. I see it from the GCs because traditionally the GCs were adopting technology first, and then they would suck in their subcontractors in some aspects of different platforms. But now we're also seeing subcontractors, since they're so used to working with their GCs on platforms, they too are looking for tools that can suffice to their workflows. And it's totally different. A GC, right, is has different workflows. They care about different things. Unless they're self-performing and they're doing the work themselves, what they care about is a lot different than what a sub needs to run their business. So you are starting to see companies that are starting to build for the trades. That's what we do. We build for the trades because we like getting our hands dirty. Like when you're dealing with the trades, you're dealing in the field where the rubber meets the road. They also are a different breed. They know like what works for them, what doesn't. There's a very thin line of like how they will adopt technology. And we like dealing with that aspect right now because not just it's new, but we're starting to see where we can really accelerate on their workflows that technology was not able to do. Even 3 years ago, you weren't able to do some of the things that we can do now.
How accepting are they of new technology versus wanting to stick with the status quo? Is it taking a lot of convincing? And have you seen it change over the last, say, 6 months or a year? Because I feel like in a lot of industries, the acceptance of technology, especially AI, has really grown.
I will say a couple things. If a subcontractor has recognized pain and they know that they need a solution, the adoption, the status quo can be flipped very fast. If a subcontractor has not realized the pain, right, and they do not care to solve, or maybe it's not a big enough problem for them, then you're doing more of a pushing than getting pulled. The biggest thing that we see though is when you get the right companies that understand and want to solve the right problems that the software can speak to, it does move pretty quick. But the industry is still very backwards as far as technology adoption because the status quo has always been, listen, like I've been running my business for 30 years with pen and paper. Forget Excel, like forget Microsoft. I'm talking about pen and paper. And look, Eric, I've been profitable, right? So what we say is, look, we get that. We understand you're profitable, right? You've been around for 30 years, but where the market's headed, the reduction of what is taking place with labor, finding the right people, and how these companies are growing, they can't find the right talent. They need to be able to use their people to do more. And so software is unlocking that ability for them to really get into a place where they can grow the business without growing crazy on the headcount, because the headcount you can't find. And the projects are getting more complex. The projects are getting bigger. Timelines are getting sucked. Owners are not coming to contractors telling them, oh, yeah, I'm going to give you more time to build. They're telling them, I need to compress this time, right? So everything is coming down to that trade, which is like the subcontractor trade to really make it happen. And so we are starting to see a shift, but it's not like other industries where they're just adopting it right away. It takes time. And also, you have to build trust and you have to show them that you're not changing what they're used to doing. As soon as you do that, you've almost lost them because you won't get the adoption.
Are you seeing economic conditions pushing them into technology where they otherwise might not have been open to it?
Yes, at least for us on the material side, we are seeing people get a little bit more cognizant of like tariffs, right? And tariffs may not be affecting everyone, but what does affect everyone is the noise around it. They don't know are my suppliers going to increase pricing because they are getting an increase from maybe importing certain amounts of copper for things that we're buying. So they are starting to listen to not just listen to the news, but listen to where this could affect their business. And they are looking a little bit more proactively at getting systems in place to help reduce that type of spend and that type of waste. They're also looking at, a lot of, I would say not articles, but a lot of people are now speaking towards like the industry from a tech perspective. You've got podcasts now talking about technologies in construction. You've got different people that are evangelists in the space that are starting to really not just evangelize, but educate people on what's out there. And as I think the education of the market is really turning to these people being a little bit more inquisitive and trying to find solutions more so than, us pulling them into solutions.
How much of that is a generational shift, would you say?
I would say a decent amount is generational. We're starting to see businesses that are being turned over to the younger generation or the next generation. And the next generation's coming in and they're looking at this business saying, okay, the business has been running, but there's no way that we're going to be able to attract the right talent to come work and do some of the manual work. No one enjoys punching numbers into an accounting system. No one enjoys manually reconciling pieces of paper together. And no one enjoys like not having a full grasp and visibility on like where their spend is in real time. And so people are looking at other industries and they're saying, well, I can go work in the finance or tech or healthcare or, other space and probably have a much better time working there just because of the tools I'm using. And they're also looking at the opportunity of construction saying, well, man, there's so much going on in construction. It's exciting. It's new. Every project is treated essentially custom. And they're looking at that opportunity and saying, I think that this actually could work, but we need to change our processes. We see it all the time where, the father son or, you know, that relationship is there, or the mother daughter relationship of like handing over the business, and the next generation is looking for tools to streamline that operation. Because again, what are they used to? They're used to going on their phones, finding things out quickly, looking at everything digitized, and that is the nature of where this is headed. It's just going to take a lot more time in construction.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how do you go about reaching your buyers? You're trying to sell a technology into a lower tech kind of marketplace. How do you get your tool in front of
Yeah.
them?
So we have a lot of tools internally that we're using that we're able to prospect based off of who we know is a good fit. And we have a very clear definition of our ideal client profile. Very clear. We don't go out to certain companies at certain sizes. So how we're finding is really from sourcing through the internet, right? Like we can source through the internet with some new tools now. We are very heavy in person at conferences. That's a big thing for us is being in person, having that relationship build over time because there's also a trust factor in construction technology. People have gotten burned before. A lot of them still are getting burned, but we show up in person, so that's a big piece for us. And we're starting to optimize on a lot of signals that we see in the market. This is some of the new age era of finding our prospects. Is being heavy on social media platforms like LinkedIn, being able to educate people on what we're doing so that we can build that type of network that really shows that we're not just solving a problem for you, but really like speaking towards where the future of procurement's going in general. But we're finding it's very tough to find the massive amounts of contractors that are out there, and you'd be shocked at how many there are. But they're not just all in one spot; they're all over,
Right.
and so we're doing a lot of different prospecting to find our right fit. A lot of different networks we're in, as far as the trade networks and trade associations, but we're touching everywhere you can imagine right now to find them.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's tough because a lot of them don't have a big digital footprint to begin with. They're not spending a lot of time online.
Most are not. Some are actually moving towards a more digital footprint. You see LinkedIn becoming a little bit more prominence as far as that thought leadership from C-suite executives in the space. But you're right. I mean, that's why a lot of conferences have popped up to get people together because there is no centralized place to find everyone.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about AI and how it's playing a role within your company. So what exactly are you finding uses for AI, both internally to assist in the way your company runs and externally and how it's presented to the customer?
So I'll start internally. So internally, our product engineering teams are very heavy with artificial intelligence right now, from obviously prototyping to actually coding to QA, right? Automated QA, end-to-end testing. We are looking at every piece of artificial intelligence right now to make our product and engineering teams not just more efficient, but to build better quality code that will ultimately serve the end user a lot better. We can push faster, we can release faster, and we can release more quality without having to layer on so many bodies. We are using a lot of artificial intelligence on customer success and when it comes to implementation, right? Being able to set things up faster on the database front for our users when they want to onboard on a subbase, being able to actively reach out with support because a lot of what we do is still person to person, but we want to be able to move faster. And a lot of the tools we're seeing out there that allow us to do that, that embed inside of our application, are heavy on artificial intelligence calls, right? We record our calls and we have a lot of transcripts that give us insights into how some of these calls should be transcribed as far as next steps. What are some of the things we missed? Like any type of like AI call, recording has been phenomenal for us so that we don't miss things, so that we can be in the moment, right? So a lot of what we do on, you know, demos or discovery calls or even customer success calls, a lot of times, in the past, you would lose sight of what someone's saying because you're trying to take notes. And so what we found was if we can listen to you have a conversation, I can always go back and watch it, but get insights. But I want to be in the moment listening to you speak versus me have my head down and try to write down every type of note. So that's been a really big piece of us internally. And then as far as, go to market, there's a lot on the marketing and sales front we're doing. We are looking at how to obviously prospect better with artificial intelligence tools. We're looking at how to, reach, our end client or end prospect without it being automated, but in a more personalized way where we can look at more deeply inside of like, what type of companies and what are they doing that we can kind of glean insights from so that we can make sure that when we outreach to them, it's actually appropriate.
Mm.
And as far as other pieces of internal communication, we see a lot of different tools internally that are helping us prioritize our roadmap and what customers, what discovery and prospects are telling us so that we can really synthesize that to align with our roadmap of where we're headed. That's like a lot of the internal that we're using with artificial intelligence. We are an AI first company when it comes to all of that. We're always looking at the latest tools because these tools are also changing overnight. I mean,
Mm,
they are literally
yeah.
changing overnight. And if you're not on top of it, it's an even bigger problem because you could be left in the dust. So
Yeah.
externally, that's where like a lot of exciting things are happening. We use a lot of artificial intelligence embedded in the platform. We are using it in a lot of different ways, right? Artificial intelligence and a lot of those generative AI pieces of the platform are great with data. It's great with numbers, great with documentation. That's a big piece of the procurement process is that data. So we're doing a lot of data, a lot of forecasting, a lot of synthesizing of the data to make sure that we can connect the end user on our platform in a more seamless way with their vendors so that they can keep their same flows going without changing a lot of their workflow on the material data side. We're doing a lot of extraction with, just RFQs and invoices to make sure that we can take the manual efforts out of what a vendor calls something versus what a contractor calls it, making sure that they have the right information up front. We're using artificial intelligence for, delivery tickets, right? Snapping a photo of something and being able to parse that information and find the PO very quickly to parse into the order receipt and also have the delivery receipt there. We're exploring a lot on conversational AI, right? Being able to speak into your
Mm.
phone and being able to process that bill of materials and send out the request to the warehouse back to a vendor without you having to do all that manual effort. So we're doubling down on it. We think it's obviously the single biggest thing that's going to help us get to our next chapter of this seamless automation, but still give it a real life feel because to be honest with you, a lot of contractors are worried about artificial intelligence. And so there's a fine balance between how do you implement it correctly versus what is overdoing it. And so we're trying to keep that right balance based on what our users are telling us.
Well, it's a perfect transition into my next question, actually. So, what is your philosophy as a company on where AI should replace human work within your workflows
Mm,
and where human judgment is still essential?
great. So like any so human judgment is needed in a lot of what we do from a building perspective, right? We can build a beautiful prototype with artificial intelligence, but you still need the human to be able to speak to an end user and interact in a way that allows them to use their brain to understand, is this the right approach? Is this going to make it simpler or is this not going to be is this a problem, right? Where AI is phenomenal is looking at some data sets and trying to interpret, is this actually this? What I mean by that is what a vendor is calling this piece of pipe actually what the field's calling it? And you can actually use artificial intelligence to actually master that piece. And that's what we're doing a lot of. And that is where AI should be used, right? We want our product managers, our engineers to be able to use AI to do a lot of the manual tasks, but we don't want to take the thought process out of how to build a phenomenal product based on user intent and how our users are feeling and needing certain aspects of the product to be built. And I think that that's the line we draw is like, we know that AI right now is not going to be able to go make a sales call for us. They're not going to show up in person. Like we do a lot of in person, right? So from a sales perspective, AI is very much used for, building lists, being able to, enrich those lists, right? I would rather use that dollar spent on AI to do that versus try to figure out, can an AI agent call one of our prospects and have a real conversation with him over the phone and try to understand his pain points with SubBase.
Mm.
Selling in construction is very personal. Selling in the material space like we do is even more personal, all relationship based. So we draw the line in certain areas, but for the most part, we find that the data, the documentation, the pieces where AI is doing very well, that's what we're doubling down on. The things that take human thought and human interaction, we're not pushing the limits on that because we know what the capabilities are right now.
So, given that construction is one of the least digitized industries out there, do you think AI is going to allow it to leapfrog directly into some of these modern workflows, or is there still going to be this slow pace of adoption?
I think AI can leap into these workflows. I think the biggest thing is though it's got to be flexible enough to meet the needs of every different, not just every different person, but there's a lot of different nuances of different workflows that just take training, right? Like a lot of like the models that we are training on, like They're training on data that is specific to certain customers, and there's a lot of things that go into how we train our models and how we actually um, can see like what is success versus what isn't success. And so I think that there's always a fine line. The exciting part is that we like is that the I feel like every month there's something new. There's something new that we
Mm.
either didn't see before or something got better. And how it gets better is like it's not little increments. It's like exponentially getting better, which is what we like to see and stay on top of.
Yeah. So, in your view, how will AI reshape the skills and job descriptions of procurement teams over the next 5 to 10 years?
So I truly so there's a couple things. One, AI could completely eliminate the need for managing like very extensive price sheets that are getting updated all the time. That you can have AI in the back end making sure that what your field is calling it versus what the vendor's calling it, this is a match 100%. Like that can be completely done through artificial intelligence. You can also start to use the data, right, that we're training off to start forecasting where these material prices are going to go based on a lot of factors that you can use with the modeling. So we're looking at AI as far as like, scoring, right? Scoring not just vendors, but scoring materials and seeing where those are going and trending is a big piece of like where we see a lot of promise in the AI space with materials. And then the one thing that we like to see in the field is, AI is not just plugging into ChatGPT and typing. It's having conversation, right? Being able to use this as an agent to help you buy better, being able to take the manual lift of typing up lists and being able to do a lot more at once. We're leaning very heavily into that conversational piece.
So, how do you see some of the roles in the construction industry and particularly in procurement shifting over the next, say, even just year or two?
Yep. I see I see less headcount and more productivity. I don't think you're going to need huge procurement teams to manage bigger companies. I feel like they're going to be able to get a lot more done with less headcount. That's a big, big piece, and that's what we're already seeing that. That's not like, oh, I think so. That's like already being shown that you can make a lot more of a productivity stand there. The other piece that we see is you're going to be able to have procurement managers do what they need to do on procurement. Right? Procurement is not, oh, I'm going to just go buy from Chris Supply. Procurement is thinking forward, 10 steps ahead, looking at the data and analyzing it in ways where you can take that information back to pre-construction and tell the pre-construction team, hey, we noticed that MDO plywood in this area of the country is actually trending down. And I know we've got products in the hook. We should actually probably make a buy now and store like that type of insight. That's what procurement managers need to do. Right now, our procurement managers are doing, you know what they're doing? They're taking in lists from the field. They're manually trying to find what this is. It's such a waste of time. So we see AI helping them do their actual job, which is be a procurement person and not punching through keyboards. It's literally looking at data in a way where you can actually benefit the company and kind of see through multiple lenses. And same happens on the vendor side. Like we focus very heavily on vendors. We have a two-sided platform. So our vendor network is wanting more so that they can not just, be a better service provider for the end user on the sub side, but give them the insights so that they could actually proactively go and know what needs to be sold at what time and how can I be more of a more of a resource, right? Educating you versus taking your order and getting into a system and just telling you when it's going to be like that. That needs to be changed, and we can do that with artificial intelligence.
Do you see a future where AI will eventually fully handle procurement and that there will no longer be a need for a
No,
human in the loop at all?
not in construction, and I'll tell you why. Construction is not manufacturing. It's not a, okay, I've got a car, I'm going to feed it a standard model, right? I'm just using Tesla as an example. And we're just going to feed it and these robots are going to do it and everything's great. It's not. Every building is custom. The foundation of just excavation in the ground is running into problems. I can never imagine that the procurement piece in construction would be fully automated. There's just too much going on for it to be fully autonomous without having the interaction of people that can actually think through a lot of the problems because a lot of what happens in procurement is a lot of like repetitive buying. It is, but when that's buying, right? Procurement is actually using your brain to think further along the lines to connect pre-construction with construction and to learn from what you've done. And I think that there's just too much customization of construction for it to be a completely 100% autonomous.
So you mentioned earlier the reduction in headcount as being a possibility because so much of it can be automated. What do you see happening with those personnel? Are there positions, places within the contractors, subcontractors, organizations where there's that need to shift resources and personnel?
So what I mean by the headcount shift is most companies, every company we talk to, there's not a single company out there that says, "Oh, we're going to go from 20 million top line next year to 10 million." Everyone's going from 20 to 30, 20 to 40, 20 to 100 in some cases. They're 5xing sometimes. So what we see is that those companies that are growing that we work with, they're not going to need to hire the personnel needed to manage the buying process, and they can do it with their team with the right tools, right? For other companies, right, the repurposement of those people that are in that process, we see them being repurposed to, analysts that are helping the pre-con team get that data from SubBase so that they can buy better. They're helping the project teams look at things that were not seen before. So instead of them typing information into an accounting system or into a spreadsheet, they're looking at the data, looking at the information, and being able to report in a much more higher level way where they can actually foresee budget problems. They can help make better deals of buying in certain areas. They can see which vendors they should be talking to a little bit more because maybe vendors are either slacking on some delivery or maybe there's a back order problem. All of this stuff can be used to be more proactive versus what's today. It's all retroactive. Everything today is retroactive. Everything's a fire.
Mm,
We
mm,
talk to most of the time of when we talk to people about procurement and looking at SubBase, I have to see that I'm so busy. And why are they busy? They're doing a million things. They're putting out fires every day. We want to there's never going to not be fires. We want to eliminate some of the fires that could be put out today and allow them to focus on higher level work that will actually drive more margin to the business versus punching in numbers all day on a keyboard.
right, right. So how should leaders in traditionally manual industries approach AI adoption without losing trust from their teams? Because a lot of the lower level personnel are going to immediately think, "Oh, this is being implemented to replace me. It's doing the job that I do."
I think
So
it's
what's going to happen?
education. So I think first it's education, right? People just need to be educated because technology and construction is moving fast, but what's moving faster is AI. AI is moving faster than anything that we've seen. And I do think that there needs to be a certain amount of education that needs to be done, right? Why are we using this? What are the actual problems this is going to solve for? And I think once you've educated the right people, you will be able to explain to them, like, why is this necessary and where they could go in their career if they had the ability to use a tool that can help them grow in that facet, right? I don't think anyone that's in these companies we work for comes on or even calls us and says, "Oh my God, Eric, I love entering data into this. I love. I can't tell you like no, I love this." What they're saying is like it's a pain. Yeah, I can do a million different things. And as long as they're educated on how you working with the tool will advance you and not the tool is replacing you, then that's how it should be. Like there are tools that will replace some of the automation, right? You probably don't need someone typing in line item journal entries to an accounting system. Like you don't probably need that in the future, right? But what you do need is someone looking at the data, understanding it, and really trying to get a better grasp on purchasing, which that tool on the AI side could very much help.
So I'll let you out of here on this one. What is one area of AI in construction that you're most optimistic about and one that you're watching with a little bit of caution?
Okay. The one that I'm very optimistic about is the translation modeling that we're doing. And what that means is we're using artificial intelligence to translate what the field calls something versus what a vendor calls it. That already happening. We're doing a lot there. Our users are excited about it. Like 100% convinced that this is going to change the way that a lot of people are not just look at the data, but can actually make sense of it and like what they need from the field versus what the vendor can say. That's great. Where I see some of the hesitation, I would probably say there's a couple of things. Like, there's some hesitation in like some of, I would say, the robotics pieces of AI.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, like, there's a lot of like artificial intelligence out there that's doing great things with robotics on layout, right? Layout is a great thing to, that you can automate. But then there's some things that I'm seeing that are just a little bit too much, right? It's just like, wow, are we really trying to automate the entire, like, building process in certain areas of the structure, right? Like, it's a very intense thing that I think right now people are skeptical because, like, there is a lot that goes into it, and also like the amount of R&D that needs to get there so that someone can feel good about testing it and then going and scaling that is a lot different than scaling software. I think that just AI in general, right, from a data perspective and document perspective, like, that's already proven. There's going to be even more there. Like, that's proven. I think in construction, right, the robotic space is going to be very interesting. I don't think it's not going to happen, but it's one where I'm interested to see, like, how much can you automate with AI and robotics to really, you know, help with the labor shortage problems that, like, we hear so often in the field. That is what I'm saying. Okay, like, is this actually going to happen, and is this possible?
So are we going to end up with a bunch of 3D printed buildings in the future?
Well, see, they're out there, right? But
Yeah.
it's like, how do you actually do that, right? And I have some ideas on how 3D printing could work, right? But you also, like, being from especially from the concrete world, you also see what it takes to actually build some of these projects, and it's like, it takes a lot of understanding of how to build that I don't think we're ready for from a robotics, maybe not even anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, Eric, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for coming on this show.
yeah. Thanks,
Where
Chris.
can people find you and learn more about you?
So LinkedIn. So we're very, very, very much on LinkedIn. They can follow myself, Eric Helitzer, our LinkedIn page, or right through our website. And the website is very easy. It's subbase, subbase.io. Go right to the website. We're super responsive. Even if you're interested in just talking through what we're doing, I always like to hear how people are handling their procurement, material, equipment, everything today. That's the quickest and easiest way to find us and chat with us.
Fantastic. To everyone listening, thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to share. Don't forget to subscribe so you can catch all the episodes as they come out. Leave us a review, and as always, stay human. Thank you for listening to this episode of Human Work After AI. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast provider so you never miss an episode, and we'll see you next time.